Let's see. So we're live for those of my audience here. I'm happy to announce I'm talking with Oklahoma candidate for Senate, Troy Green. Troy, can you please just introduce yourself to the crowd, please?
Hey, hello everybody. As he said, my name is Troy Green. I grew up here in Oklahoma, and I decided to things were getting a little too crazy, and we need to get some some people with real lived experience on the to get involved. And I just had enough and decided that it was time for me to jump in here and run and try to make a difference.
I appreciate you. And like we were talking before we went live, I feel like me and you just have a ton in common, just with kind of our lived experience and professional experience. Can you just talk a little bit about your teaching, law enforcement, security, work with kids? I mean, again, for those of you that know me, know kind of what I do, but I'd love for you to kind of expand on your experience that I feel like makes you different than other people out there.
I'll go through this as quick as I can.
Take your
This
time,
kind
brother.
of part of my
We got time.
sure, sure. It's kind of a long story, but it's long only because it has to be long for me to tie everything together. So just I'll just go through my normal stump that I normally go through when I'm speaking publicly, and that is that through some tragedy in my youth, I ended up in the foster care system, and I was in and out, in and out, in and out of foster homes throughout my childhood, and between foster homes and on the street, things of that nature. So I survived being shot, survived being stabbed. I was shot at 12, but I say all of that to say that my goal of being a police officer was the thing I wanted to do to change my situation for other people. I thought, man, if I survive this, I swear I'm going to be a police officer and I'm cleaning all this up. And I think a lot of people grow up that way, whether it's someone that grows up and goes into the military or whatever, just that need for service to others. Um, but the martial arts side of this is kind of was the thing that happened accidentally. I was homeless at the time, and I would walk back and forth by this martial arts school. And the guy motioned me in one night, and he didn't really ask me any personal questions about my situation. I think he just kind of knew. I was 17 at the time, and he was remodeling his school, and he needed help. So he said, "Man, if you're interested in taking some kickboxing classes, I'll teach you for free. If you'll help me paint and clean the mats and do all this remodel stuff." So, but he also said, "And just in case you ever need it, I happen to have an empty room in the back. You're welcome to stay in." And I was sleeping under a railroad trestle at the time with a couple 60-year-old, homeless folks. Back then we called them hobos, but I guess I was one too. But this guy took me out the street and got me, kept me alive, kept me out of jail, and kept me from dying. So through all of that, you know, I, another thing, I thought this was fortuitous because I thought, man, I was kind of a small kid. Uh, I did, I feel like my growth was stunted because of malnutrition and things, when I was young. But I thought, man, if I could learn how to handle myself out there, then, I'm more apt to get a job as a police officer. I just thought they wouldn't hire me because of my size. So I just thought all this was just a sign that that's what I needed to do. So, but the year I pinned on my badge as a full-time officer, because I reserved for some time, was the same year I opened my school. And I, as soon as I opened my school, it was in 1992. I reached back out to my caseworker from DHS for my foster care days and said, "Hey, pick out 6 kids a year, that you think I could save and send them to me, and we'll teach them for free." So I've done that throughout my martial arts career. And in 2018, I started 510 Youth Foundation to kind of broaden what we were already doing with the school, to bring, we wanted to get more kids involved all the way up to age 19. We started a tutoring program. We started a GED class prep program to teach kids and young people how to write resumes and fill out job applications and things of that nature. So sadly enough, that program really didn't take off as far as donations go, but it's all I've done my entire adult life is trying to figure out uh, how do I be more of the people I needed in my life, when I was coming up. Um, this campaign is kind of an extension of that as I'm trying to figure out how to help on a grander scale. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, no, that's great. I just wanted to kind of point out, and I'm gonna leave if it's all right with you. I mean, I think you'll be okay with it, but I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna put in the description box your website for running for Senate.
Sure,
And
sure.
is that a picture of your son that's up there with your wife?
That's my youngest. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. He
is
just got
that the
home from the
Marine or
Marines. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So
You can tell
we
we fed him.
yeah, when you were saying size, I was like, man, he sounds a pretty big stout kid. But
He's
yeah,
big. Yeah.
yeah. But no, I'm gonna post that up just for people to kind of to kind of take a look at. But you said something that was really
I'll,
interesting, and I think it's what got you so I feel the same way about I'm active in law enforcement. You know, I definitely and I joined the military as well. I'm all about giving back. I did search and rescue, so saving people, searching, finding, saving is
you bet.
that's something that is important to me. And then the last 3 years, I was part of the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force Sergeant for Oklahoma's Eastern District. Um, there's a lot of saving. There's a lot of kids that need to be saved out there. You
Mhm.
know, like I was telling you before, last week, adjudicated crime here in Eufaula. Guy got 17 and a half years. This stuff's real. And so you became a teacher. What made you kind of, and I think it might be similar, what made you want to go from the being law enforcement and being a teacher? What was kind of your nexus to that?
So that again, that's just all part of the martial arts career. I left. I just didn't feel after 12 years, and I worked in confinement too. Trying to figure out where I fit in, but I just felt like that through my school, and I just felt like that I was doing create. I had a bigger impact there. I mean, I tutored third grade reading and math for my community service hours for my first black belt. And so, and then, I came back and did the same for my second. I have multiple black belts, by the way, in different systems, but that is my teaching. That all my teaching is done through my school. And then when I graduated college this past May, uh, everybody kind of assumed that I would just go straight into public education. They seemed like that was kind of the natural transition for me. But again, it just isn't with my current nonprofit and the businesses that I run now. It just wasn't going to fit.
Yeah.
So
Let me ask you, let's just kind of get into it. I'm gonna release some information I haven't told anybody, but I just figured you'd be the best person to kind of talk to about this. So obviously I'm law enforcement and I look at a lot of this stuff that's happening in schools. And I as a law enforcement, and there's a lot of us that are law enforcement that want to do more.
mhm,
And the reason why I became a teacher, I'll just be honest with you, when I was doing ICAC, I just realized there was a big need for education for kids. Um, somebody needs to go and somebody needs to do it, right? And if the
right,
teachers, you know, and obviously in this last administration, we know who was running the
right,
education.
right.
And I'm not, you know, I'm not here to. I have my own opinions, and we'll kind of flush them out if you're willing. I know you're running for. I know you're running for. You know, you're running for office, so I won't. You know, I won't push too hard. I'll just give you my opinions. And if you want to talk about it, you can
Sure, sure.
talk about the Ryan Walters stuff. But um, overall, right? I felt like, at least in my community, that kids needed to be smarter about cyber awareness, right? I feel like in law enforcement, and I feel like in some of the school stuff, sometimes we fall behind. You know, you have Fortune 500 companies, you have businesses that already understand the importance of cybersecurity, already understand the importance of how these kids are being contacted. And again, with this last like for example, I was in federal court last week. It took 2 years to adjudicate, and this guy had compromised the computer systems of public education. Right? We know these guys
Mhm.
are able to do it. This is no longer a what's it called? This is no longer a hypothetical. Right. And so safety and security of schools are important. And when I had tried to address that, you know, I was kind of shut down. I was like, well, you're not a teacher, so you can't really teach and talk to kids. And that's why I became, honestly, that's why I got certified as a teacher, just because, there's those of us that want to do more. And we have, I'm not saying I'm going to turn around and teach history or math tomorrow. That's not what I'm saying. But, it would be nice if the things that I am smart in that I can teach, right? I think that I'm uniquely, for example, why don't we talk about our kids, their rights, right? We have school, like for example, driver education program, right? We have schools that teach driver's ed, but when I talk to these kids about, and I talk to parents, especially, well, my son or daughter has no idea what to do if they're pulled over. They have no idea what to do if they're involved in an offender bender or crash. These driver ed
Yeah.
programs are barely teaching them how they're barely teaching them how to drive, much less what happens when they do drive.
They're just teaching them how to pass the test.
Right. And so it's like,
Mhm.
okay, cool. I'm not saying don't teach them anything else, but is it okay if I come in and do some civics on constitutional rights, right?
Mhm.
That I'm sworn to,
Yeah.
you're sworn to, that we're your son's sworn to, that we're all sworn to, right? We all took an oath of no expiration. And to be told, well, no, you're not a teacher, you know, uniquely, so it's so now, well, so I have a law degree, but I'm not certified to teach civics to kids. Okay, so I got the stupid piece of paper from state of Oklahoma that says I can teach. Maybe after this video they'll rescind it. But you know what I mean? And so that's just always been frustrating. And this is what so April 9th, 2025, I met with the Oklahoma State Department of Education, and I talked with his guys, and I explained to them all the issues that we were having. Right, everything. One of the issues I brought up, a lot of people don't realize this, but there was a school district here in Oklahoma that had a guy come in pretending to be a government official, had access to all the kids. They called 911 after he left because they're like, that was weird. We didn't hear about that on the news, and they didn't share this information, right? I can tell you, Uber Eats is being actively utilized to as a way
Yeah.
to access children, kidnap children. So these are all real life things that I have case numbers for.
Yeah.
I brought it
But
up to them, and I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard anything back. I've reached out, radio silence, and it's just I look at stuff like that, and it makes me, and I have the receipts, and it makes me feel like our kids should be something that we should all uniquely be worried about. But then we look at current events, right? And it,
right. Right.
so I just if you have an opinion on it, I'd love to hear it. If not, we can move on.
With the public education
Yeah,
as a
just
whole,
yeah. Well, I mean, I would
uh,
say, go ahead, sir. Yeah.
I mean, you're talking to a survivor, right? That's how I ended up in foster care, and that's why I started Safe Haven, Oklahoma this year. And what people just don't realize, I mean, what you're talking about is extremely important, but it's just so much bigger, right? The problem here is that the demand is so high that they have to find all these multiple resources for the supply. And for those of you who don't understand where I'm getting at here, I'm talking about a supply of children, a supply of trafficking victims. And you mentioned Uber Eats, and you're talking about cybersecurity. I mean, this is all as a whole. It's happening in the foster care system. It's happening on the border. It's we don't know what's happening to the children they're taking off the streets right now through ICE. I mean, it's this is such a huge. I've started Safe Haven because, and like you, we've got to get the word out about being more diligent in the protection of our children and our families as a whole. I mean, when you think about trafficking, that people's mind automatically goes to young girls, that also boys. I mean,
Well,
the
there's
numbers
boys
are
are
very similar.
yeah, statistically,
Hmm.
boys are the number one likelihood to be sextorted. They're the
Hmm.
number one likelihood to commit suicide from these types of things. Like I would say,
Correct.
our little, I don't want to say little boys, but our young men, they're uniquely at
Hmm.
risk, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. 12 years old, 12, is like the most common age from the research that we've done. But like you said, more has to be done. And again, that's where uh, being able to teach the way in the format that I teach, I get to say whatever I want. I get to I just give a real world conversation,
Right.
real talk, real language, in terms that people can understand. So, and we just need more of that. Parents need to, um, I need to take a closer look at, the influences in their children's lives, for sure.
100%. So what do you think? So I think, you know, as we know, and for those of you that are watching this may not know, Oklahoma is a deeply red state, right? I think every place of it is deeply red. I know you're running as a Democrat. A lot of people don't know I'm a registered libertarian. Just full disclosure, they're not trying to. Not that that matters, right? I think party affiliation is something we take to our detriment, right? Just because you don't know policies, but you
It's
see
part of the
color.
problem.
Yeah, you see color and you
Hmm.
assume.
Yeah,
And so,
right.
you know, I look at this and I feel like, and from everybody I talk to, conservative, liberal, in between, not sure, Oklahoma education is taking such a hit the last 18 months. And what's your how would you what do you I know you were having these conversations, so just tell me, what are you telling people? Like how do we go about this, man?
So there, for one, there are several candidates running for state superintendent, right? So I would encourage all your listeners to look at each of these candidates, and figure out who's going to get in there and do what we need to do. Uh, they we've fallen a long way in the last 15 years, right? Again, we were, and people argue whether we were ranked 17th or 19th, or what difference does it make? We're at 50th in
Yeah.
education, right?
Right.
So uh, I think that funding is going to be a big issue. Now, listen, all this is by design. You mentioned that Oklahoma's a red state. We've all of us have just come out of this Ryan Walters era, and I think that regardless of how you vote, I think that the majority of us agree that a lot of this was nonsense and definitely not helping our students. So we've got to get back to, you know, we keep looking at things from the wrong angle, and I think we need to look at from the bottom up instead of the top down, right? Whether we're talking about politics or talking about the economy or talking about public education. In the first place, I just don't presume to have all the answers when it comes to this, our public education system. But funding is a huge issue, and like I said, a lot of this is by design. There are some people on the right who want to um, they want to push more people into private schools, right? Into
Sure.
these voucher programs for private schools where they can, better spread their message, whatever that message might be. Whether it's Christian nationalism or, uh, I don't know, right wing politics or whatever it is. I get it. I understand where they're heading with it. But we've got to protect our public education system. And that protection needs to come from the rural areas in instead of from, the metropolitan areas outward. Our rural areas, people can't afford to drive 20 miles to school. They're shutting down, that lack of funding is going to start making it difficult for these rural schools to stay afloat. And so I don't know what the answers are. I'm just rambling on here,
Yeah,
but
no, I think you're making so I think there's great points there. Um I'm kind of on this issue. I'm really split, man. I've done school resource as a school resource officer. I know there's some great teachers. I have friends that are great teachers. Like I'm a I'm technically a teacher, you're a teacher. There's some great teachers out there, but it's just like cops, there's some not so good ones either. And
sure.
I hate this paintbrush. I don't do it. I refuse to do this paintbrush thing. I hate to do this paintbrush, style era things, but
Mhm.
I think, kind of to your point, we public schools paid for in taxes, right? Our tax dollars goes to it. So we should have an incentive to make sure that
Sure.
it's the best, that's the best it
Sure.
can be. With that being said, I also understand why you have parents that if they can afford private school, they utilize it. I also understand why there are parents that do the homeschooling stuff too. So I get all of it. My thing is kind of like what you're saying. we got to pay for it anyway. The taxes are coming out anyway.
Mhm.
Why can't we get on board and make this, as beneficial for everybody as humanly possible? Because I mean, I was raised in the public school system. A lot of us were. And then I have really good friends that parents were able to do the homeschooling thing, or they were able to do the private schooling thing. So I think education is important. I think parent choice is important, but irrespective, both can be true at the same time. As a parent, if you want to homeschool your kids or whatever, that's awesome. I love that for you. For those that can't, that's awesome. I love that for you. If we got to pay for it anyway, though, you know, we need to make it the best they can be. And most importantly, we got to make sure they're safe.
Right, right. I mean, if we're going to pay for it, why aren't we paying, giving them the best that we can possibly give them?
Because the
Right.
truth is, not
And sadly,
everybody's going to homeschool, or not everybody can private school.
sure,
That's just the
for
statistically, that's
sure.
the reality.
Sure, for sure. Well, we look at this a couple different ways. I came through public education system here in Oklahoma, uh, a long time ago, and they, I wasn't the best student. I mean, my life was in shambles. And I just got pushed through, you know, but I can't remember where I was heading with this, but look at it from everywhere you go. Like everybody has a beef with the school system there, right? So when we moved to Ardmore, everybody's like, "Oh man, don't go to Ardmore Public Schools." I hate to call out one particular school, but I'm like, wait a minute. So that school is still putting out doctors and lawyers and nurses and judges, and so how bad could it possibly be? So our public education system is putting out the people that are leading our country and leading all the services in our country, whether it's like you. Again, we grew up in the public education system. Are successful and became police officer, and you've got a law degree. And so, I mean, it's doing something right. If we can get the politics out of it, right?
I think that's the
Because
perfect point. So I think what a lot of people on the conservative side of the aisle are feeling. So that's a great question because you mentioned something important. Let's teach kids, right? So I think both things can be true. The one thing that I hate, I haven't posted this on Facebook yet because I'm trying to be very careful with my words because I'm very passionate about kids. Especially as child abuse, I'm very passionate about that, man. And so one of the things that irks me the most, let me just be honest with you, is when people, because I've had people come up to me just because I'm a police officer, right, and say, shouldn't you, if they have no idea what I'm doing, right? Why aren't cops going after rapists, child molesters, murderers, all those other things? And they say that, and the reason why I understand it. The reason why they're saying it is because they see enforcement they don't agree with. Both can be true. I can sit here and tell you there's not enough of us, but there are great officers that are out there that are investigating these crimes and doing the best they can. And then I can also say, yes, there's some punk police officers out there that are, you know, hitting everybody for rolling a stop sign. Both can be true, right? It's the same thing with teaching. Yes. Are there some teachers that will introduce more of their political ideologies and agendas to kids? Yes. Is school in general supposed to be, it's supposed to be neutral in teaching kids what they actually need? Yes. I believe by and large, most teachers are doing that, but all we want to do is hyper focus on the sensationalizing, incidences
that's
of
a
a
good
few,
word. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so that's something that's I find very passionate because again, yes, there are cops that are out there doing the great work, and yes, at the same time there are other cops out there that are just doing traffic and trying to get consent, so pretextual stop for consent to search for dope so they can get a little bit of dope. Both can be true,
Sure.
and we can address both of them. And I feel that's how I feel about teachers. I feel like there's a lot of great teachers that are giving up extra, they don't get paid enough, and they're giving up their own money and resources to make sure kids are able to be successful in the classroom. That's happening. Go ahead.
Our teachers their hands are tied. They've been tied for a long time. They don't have the resources that they need to do their job. Not to mention their class sizes are too big. So again, if let's go back to my situation. There were times that I at my age now, thinking back, I'm wondering why someone didn't pick out that there were problems in my home life. and this was a long time ago, you know, and so more needs to be done to better train our teachers, give them the funds they need to do their job, shrink their class sizes so that they can just focus on teaching,
Right.
right? Instead of, it's not their job um, to help a child figure out, the current political climate.
Right. Right. I agree.
That's for the parents to do at home.
Well, and see, I'm so, you know what's crazy? I know people right now that would be shocked that you just said that. You know that? You know how many people are
Well,
shocked that you have a guy with a D in front of his title that's saying, "Yes, I want kids to learn math, social studies, history, science. Like that's what I want them to learn. That's what they should be learning." You know how shocked people are going to be by just the fact that you said that? And that's why this I think that's why this is so important. This interview is so important because again, um,
well,
nobody can say you don't have the live experience, and nobody can say that you don't know what you're talking about.
right. Well, I got lucky, and I talked about this on a podcast the other night. And my luck came in that I had a mental mechanism in my mind that kept me from, you know, using my circumstance growing up to be a totally different person. I could ended up in prison, strung out on drugs, life of crime and all that. But luckily, my mind was geared towards proving everyone wrong, right? So, um,
No, I
that
I
being
get it.
said, I
Yeah.
mean, well, I mean that not everybody's that lucky. Not everyone is that lucky. So I came to, hang on. So this, if we spent more resources, you know, with our public education to help not just kids like me, but I'm just saying in particular because of my situation, how much better, how much, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, how much more productive a child will be if they're taught properly, right, from the get-go. If the class sizes are smaller and they can get that the help that they need from throughout their education from their teachers, how much more productive are they going to be? Had I gone a different way, right? And I'm a taxpayer. I pay lots of taxes. Trust me. But had I gone the other way, you would be paying for me with my time in prison, or my time on the streets, or my time, in public housing, or at the ER, or you see what I'm saying? So,
So let me ask you this.
we
And this is why I think people, I mean, this is the big question, right? If you become our senator, is that something that you're going to dedicate to spending time and pursuing for all Oklahomans?
I've already written a bill. I've already written my outline. It's laying here in front of me now. I mean that.
Would you mind?
Yes,
Is it public? Is that something that I could post in the description for the video, or is it not public yet?
it's on my campaign page.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
make sure that URL is there. So there, I mean, there you. I mean, again, I knew this was going to be. This is just we're just on our first topic. Well, I hope this doesn't go too long. You have time, but I just want you to know how crazy. I mean, think about it. You have somebody here. Here you are, and in Oklahoma, you're like you were talking about, you're a pariah. Like in Oklahoma, but here you are, and you're everything. I haven't found anything, and again, maybe it's because I'm a libertarian, but I haven't found anything you've said that I see as super controversial. And I think that's the biggest, and that's a fear I have too. I want kids, regardless, just even me. Like for example, I have personal held beliefs. But when I'm teaching case law and civics to kids, and I'm teaching them about traffic stops, and I'm teaching them about when they have to allow a search for a car or not, and when I'm teaching civics, I
Mhm.
can do it without putting in my personal biases as a police
Sure.
officer or as a Christian or as whatever. I can just give you I can give you what you need, and the fact that that's something that you 100% are the same thing with, I think just kind of shoots this narrative that just because you have a certain political belief that you want everybody to be a certain way. So I
But
appreciate that.
I'm running with that D. in front of my name. But I don't consider anything that I do a personal political belief.
Right.
It's just a great story. I owned and ran a big gun and pawn and antique store for several years. And a police officer friend of mine standing in my store one day, we had just had a party at my house not long before that, shooting pool and drinks and everything. Anyway, he pops into the store and we're just BSing. And he says, I've been meaning to ask you a question. Now, why he didn't ask this at my house, I don't know when we were having this Halloween party, but he says, how is a guy as liberal as you own a gun store? And I'm like, I didn't know how to answer it. I'm like, I just, I don't, it's just a business that I have. It doesn't have anything to do with politics,
Right.
or labels and this conversation is the same. I don't think in terms of labels and sides.
So there you go.
So,
That's a great segue. So I love it. I see what you did there. So let's talk about firearms. Maybe we'll find something
okay.
we disagree on here. So as you already know this because we've talked just very briefly. That's kind of how I first ran into you. So I have a bill that I'm hoping to get passed this year. It's called the Oklahoma Response Safety and Preparedness Act, CRISPA for short. And all I'm looking to do is give places of worship the same exemption that strip clubs and bars have. That's really the only that's what it is. Because what a lot of people don't realize is that if a collective of individuals were to organize, and let's say what we saw in that church in Minneapolis, right? They were to organize and say, "No, can you please stop running in and yelling at our church?" Technically, CLEAT would be able to cite them for operating as a security team because in statute you can see it says to be employed or operate, and this has already happened here in Oklahoma. So for me, right, I look at this and just take the firearm aspect out of it, right, for a second. I think that all Oklahomans and all people have a right to self defense. It needs to be lawful. It needs to be constitutional. It needs to be ethical. But in Oklahoma, right, my argument is if we have an exemption for one organization, why can't we have an exemption for all places of worship? And places of worship doesn't just mean Christians, right? There are other religions out there. You have sheiks, you have Muslims, you have other religions out there. So when I look at this is something that's again this is passionate to me because if you can't have freedom of religion in Oklahoma, specifically Eastern Oklahoma, I don't know where you can have it. To be honest with you, um, it is what I'm just being honest. It is what it is. And so when you look at guns, what is your and somebody that has not only used guns and you're professional at a high level,
Right.
but somebody who sells them or has sold them.
Right.
Tell us your elevator pitch about your belief on firearms.
Ooh. So I am in full agreement of the Second Amendment, but I also believe that we should all be able to drive a car, but I don't know if we should all be able to drive one without a license, without some training in how to drive it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I
I
I
mean,
I agree.
there has to be some common sense.
Right. So I
Go
hear
ahead.
common sense a lot. What is because common sense
Sure.
means something differently to everybody. So the libertarian side of me says, no, I completely I agree. And professionally, I agree. And when I do trainings, you can definitely tell the difference between a trained person and a not trained person. That there's no, I
Yeah.
mean, anybody that would tell me otherwise, all right, cool. Let's put you on the
Yeah.
line with me, right? Because I'm not saying I'm not the most active shooter in the world, but I shoot very regularly, and I'm doing at least a state level training a month minimum, a
Yeah,
month,
but certainly you've
right?
been on the line with someone that you thought, oh my
100
gosh.
100%. Even and here's another thing too. Um, I go to churches and I train churches and I train nonprofits, and they will tell me themselves, right? Hey, we don't trust this guy to what do we do, right? So
Mhm.
we know that that's there. Now, the libertarian side of me also states, well, the Constitution specifically you know, has the Second Amendment of bearable arms. So we can talk about the case law implications of that. But the Second Amendment does talk about that. It doesn't talk about vehicles, right? But the same thing can be said about our First Amendment with Twitter and mail and news and all this other stuff. So what does common sense mean to you, and how do you circumnavigate with people that maybe are, hey, we need to have full auto rifles, any whatever, like how do you
Where,
explain that to them?
where's the line? Why don't we just let everybody have a tank too,
So
and a
how do you break
Gatling
this down for
gun, and
people?
a grenade launcher? Huh?
How do
What
you
was
break
that?
this how do you break this down for people? Like what's your approach to?
Honestly, this is the first time I'm actually having to have this conversation.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're having it
So
with me.
yeah, it just hasn't come up publicly. It hasn't even really. I mean, I've had people message me through my website and say, "Hey, what's your stance on the Second Amendment?" I'm like, "Hey, I support it, and nobody's trying to take the guns away." I mean, that's been a political talking point for since Clinton,
and
since
and
Bill
beyond.
Clinton,
Yeah, I agree.
and honestly, the Democrats have had plenty of opportunities to make it happen, and it's not what they're after. But as soon as you start mentioning banning AR-15s, everybody's like, well, here they come. They're coming for our guns. It's not true. But there has to be a line somewhere, right? There has to be
So
a line.
what's that line for you?
I well, I'll say it for the first time publicly. If they want my AR, they can have it. I got shotguns and other rifles that do a pretty good job. So I just don't. I have them. I have them in the house now. Uh, but it's legal to have them. And if it wasn't legal to have them, I'd be all right with it. I mean,
So yeah, so I if we're going to talk about that, right? So play devil's advocate. What about the AR-15 are you? Because when I look at that, right, again, I'm looking at this from a law standpoint as well. Um, because then I'm thinking, okay, AR-15, and then I start thinking about SBRs, right? I start thinking about
sure,
handguns that are the caliber is 9 millimeter, but they shoot and operate as if they're a rifle, right? The average person wouldn't understand that this is not a stock, this is a brace, etc.
right,
And those,
right.
so if you can then take away that, so you see how if you play through the technicalities and ATF, if you start going down these technical aspects, I can see that being burdensome. Also, I would also argue that a shotgun that's chambered in a slug is more dangerous than your AR-15. Your AR-15 is,
For real.
or a semi-automatic shotgun in buckshot is more dangerous than your AR-15, hands down.
Sure.
So that's where I kind of get a little, it's a little, it
But
gets a little
only at close
interesting.
range. Only at close range,
So
right?
if it's a distance thing,
So
right?
defense.
So I guess where does the distance go? Because I mean, I would argue that a 300 blackout that's you know a
Do we
40-40, for
need?
example, is more dangerous than a AR-15 if you're talking about caliber, right? So a 30-30 is so. So that's kind of where. So I guess the thing is,
So
so if the government were to say, okay, we have the AR-15s, and then they say, well, we want the shotguns now, is that when you would stand up and be like, no, this is a bridge too far? Is that your
yeah,
opinion, or
yeah. I mean, but let's look at this from a use of force continuum.
I would
What
love
do you say?
to. I was going to
Okay.
bring that up next with the Minnesota shooting, so let's just jump into it.
So, do I need to kill somebody 300 yards away? Are they a threat to me at 300 yards away?
I bring that situation up all the time. I
You
don't, it
see what
would
I'm
be
saying?
very,
But that shotgun is defense. That's
right,
close range. That person's close enough to kill me.
right.
So that's my line right there. I mean, that again, where does it end? I mean, again, we're not allowed. There's certain things nobody's advocating that we have grenade launchers either.
Right. No, and
Why? Why
and
aren't they?
and that's a good point. I mean, I think
So
most
every
people understand. I think most people understand that there is, um, like, in law we call it prima facie. Like there is some
sure,
at one point there is some line that has to be addressed. So let me give you, so kind of switching to the use of force, and I'll jump right back in. Historically, right? I think that when you're talking about that line, let's talk about officer induced agency. kind of what we saw with the Renee Good shooting, and now we're seeing
Hmm.
with this shooting, right? At some
Hmm.
point, I believe SCOTUS is going to have to come out and say, um, it's not reasonable for an officer to put themselves in needless danger for X, Y, and Z reasons, right? Because that's something that's happening right now. It's happening very quickly, where that's going to be a talking point that whether we like it or not, that's going to be a talking point that the SCOTUS is going to have to address, right? And we can kind of talk. I imagine we were going to kind of talk about that a little bit, but I think for me the
Yeah.
biggest thing is looking at it. And again, everybody's going to have their own opinion on it. I'm very skeptical about. I've always been skeptical about the government. Um, for me, I think the AR-15 is a road too far. I think we've done. I think with the National Firearms Act of 34, I think that's for me personally. I think that's more than sufficient. And then I think with some of the other case laws that we have, District of Columbia versus Heller, for example, I think they've already established pretty far well that that's kind of the line, right? So between this semi-automatic to this full auto kind of continuum, I feel like that's where it's at. I'm happy with it there, but I'll also be the first one to say I may not be able to legislate it, but public shame for being stupid with a gun is 100% on the table too, right? Um,
Yeah.
I just that's just my honest opinion. And again, there's tons of case law, Harold versus Rao. There's a bunch of case law on it, but I think that's where you're probably gonna lose some people with that, and people's
Well,
ideas
I
can
mean,
change,
look,
but
there's so many ways to look at this, and you got people that they well, we need arms, against a tyrannical government. Where's that line at?
see,
For crying out loud!
you're
I
right. So
mean, come on.
that's when
And,
I
and
teach.
again,
Yeah.
if you think the AR-15 is going to protect you against the government's drones, you're deluded.
Well,
So no,
that's a great question. So I tell people that too. So when I do concealed carry courses and stuff, and we talk about it, and this is probably going to be the most controversial thing that I say, but you have to ask, especially let's just take somebody that's very conservative, right? They're going to say my reason for having obviously you have to concede the reason for you having a Second Amendment is because you want to protect yourself from a tyrannical government, and then
correct.
from a case law perspective, right? Um, is somebody that's legally carrying a firearm, are they dangerous? I asked them this question, right?
Yeah,
And they're going to
yeah,
say they're not dangerous. And I'm going to say, in what world are you not dangerous? So you're telling me that the firearm you have in your waistband, in your ideology, states that you're going to use this to kill government officials when they cross a line. But you're telling me right now it's not dangerous. You armed is not dangerous. So if you're not dangerous, how do you plan on taking on a tyrannical government? Both can't be true, right? Obviously, I'll quote U.S. versus Robinson. I'll quote a few other things, but this is an important top talking point because I think that not enough conservatives are open about the fact that if you do believe that that's what the Second Amendment is for, to go against a tyrannical government, then there is that line in the sand, and nobody knows what that line in the sand.
correct.
Historically, I guess people could say the Tea Party, historically in our country's founding was that line. We can say now, emphatically, without equivocation, that is no longer the line. Taxes are no longer the line. So that's a good question.
Right.
And until that's answered, the question is we will never know. And I think that's what's most concerning for. I think that's what's most concerning for everybody. I'll be honest with you. If the government knew what the line was and everybody was in agreement, well, it makes it easy, right? Um, Not knowing what the line is I think where we get all these sentiments of civil discourse and civil war. And for those of us that have been in military and law enforcement, I can tell you, I don't want that.
Right.
You as a
Right.
police officer, you don't want that. Nobody wants a civil war. And that comes down to as a culture, I think we got to change and be kind of more responsible. Because I would
Well,
much
that's
rather have 10 trained guys than 100 guys that have no idea what they're doing that are just running around pointing guns at people.
absolutely, absolutely. And we've really gotten here by everybody wanting to be better armed than their neighbor in case their neighbor rises up.
Yeah, I
right?
think that's. I think we've been hearing those sentiments, especially during COVID. I agree. Those have been sentiments that we have heard, and that people, because the way I look at it, the right, the hardcore conservatives are saying, "Hey, preparedness, tyrannical government, civil war, like these have been talking points," and then the left, far left, has been talking about, more social justice, you know, we need to do X, Y, and Z. And then it seems like both factions kind of have this weird overlap because let me give you an example. Um, the director of Border Patrol, Bovino, I think is his last name. He just came out and
Mhm.
said that the handgun that they took off of Eric Pretty or Pridey was a high capacity handgun. And this is the Trump administration, right?
It was,
So we see these recycled talking points regardless of political party. And I'm not going to lie, to me, as a libertarian, that's confusing. Is it confusing to you?
yeah, it was a compact pistol. So I don't know what they call high capacity,
But if you,
uh,
I'm about to
but
put out the video and I'll send you a link if you're interested. But that's what he said. He said that, and he said it on CNN of all places. The
yeah.
acting director for Border Patrol said that it is a high capacity handgun. And then if you look at what one of the USA, I'll pull it up because I don't want to. I want this to be because I know that you're here, and I want to make sure that I don't mess this up. And I'll make sure I post everything. But a U.S. attorney stated, let me pull it up again. I don't want to mess this up. I don't know if I can share this on my screen, or share this with you. I don't even know if you'll be able to see it, but I'll read it to you. Um, U.S. Attorney, if you approach law enforcement with a gun, there's a high likelihood they will be legally justified in shooting you. And then the NRA had to come out and say that was very bad use of words. Don't do that. So, what's your
Hey,
opinions on
wait,
that?
what? Well, my opinion is, who's law enforcement? They don't have to identify themselves just because they're wearing a uniform with a patch on it. That doesn't work for me.
Well,
I mean,
it's a
we
great
as
point because
citizens,
yeah, the Arizona Attorney General, she's getting a little flack about saying, well, what happens if some guy without the face covering with the face covering comes and gets me? And again, we have some case law on that, right? Even when you look at the Breonna Taylor shooting, like they didn't identify themselves in that no knock warrant, and they took fire and they returned fire, but they were found, they were found negligent for that. And so again, and this isn't me taking sides here. This is just because I don't have to. I have the facts on my side. I think as a law enforcement officer, it's very dangerous when you're trying to enforce something where you can't be recognized. Every one of my reports starts with I was plain clothes or I was in uniform displaying a badge. But before I take any enforcement action, I go out of my way to ensure they know that I'm law enforcement because I need to be able to demonstrate that I have the lawful authority to do whatever it is I'm doing. Would you agree?
correct,
Is that kind of your
correct.
experience?
I am a bondsman, which means I'm also, I have to go pick people up when they miss court.
Right.
Uh, I mean, I need when law enforcement shows up to one of these situations, I need them to know that I'm not one of the bad guys, right? So yes, we have lots of insignia on. It's a state law, that I have my cleat license with me,
Right.
that I have my badge with me and my ID with me. So I don't understand why these ICE agents don't have to do the same. Take politics, take law enforcement, take everything out of this, and we're just two regular
Right.
tax-paying citizens.
Right.
Somebody knocks on my door right now. His face is covered. He's wearing this,
Tactical
some
outfit.
regalia. But I'm like, I need you to prove who you are. You don't have a warrant. I can't see your face. You're not presenting an ID. Man, I'm sorry, but screw you. You're not coming to my house. I mean, there's going to be some trouble.
No,
I mean,
I,
how do we know?
yeah.
How many times have we taught our daughters and taught people to watch out for people who dress up like police officers so that they can rape people, so they can kidnap people and rob people.
I
And
think
now here we are.
right. So let me get a little deeper with this, a little more controversial. I don't think it's controversial, but I think I think the left and right. I'm very much in the middle, right? I'm too logical. Um, that's a joke, obviously, but I'm very logical. I think there's a lot of nuance here, but here's what I'm saying. I believe that ICE has the right under case law and under federal law to enforce what they're enforcing. How they're going about it, though, I believe is probably one of the most ineffective ways they could. Right. So I'm one of those people where, if I'm being honest with you, and I've said this publicly, I think the left would be upset with me because I'd be very successful. I'd be writing warrants. I'd be very efficient, and there wouldn't be any, viral videos of because of how we go about it. I wouldn't do streets. I definitely wouldn't do street sweeps, and I think the right doesn't like it because it requires them to have some social academic acumen and makes them actually do real police work. But there's a way, if you're trying to just get as many people out of the country as possible, there's a way to do it that's not this. Because I think this is dangerous, and I think this is setting a very un not good precedence. But with that being said, I also realize that, it's my opinion's probably controversial to both sides. So I believe that they have a right to do this enforcement. I just think that, for example, Nome versus Velasquez 2025, as of September 8th, 2025. I don't know if familiar with this case law, but they only have to have a combination of four factors, right? They look Hispanic, right? They have an accent. They're in a location where illegals may or may not be, right? Um, and they are subject at that point to investigatory detention pursuant to Brown v. Texas 1979. I think that's very dangerous if you just go up to somebody and you're like, hey, like, take me, right? I'm a perfect example. In a world where you're just doing street enforcement and it's random, you could easily come up to me and be like, hey, you're at a Home Depot, you're Hispanic, what does accent mean? I sound as American as everybody else, but you could say, hey, your accent looks like, this, that, and the other.
Hmm.
Technically, by case law, that's all they need for reasonable suspicion. Now, with me, like apparently there's news reports that off-duty law enforcement's now being detained, right? Is this the best precedence, or are there other better ways that we can be doing this? So I would be the first one to push back and say, yes, both can be true. ICE, Border Patrol, you have every right to enforce immigration. You have every right to do it, but how you're doing it now is super ineffective, and there's a way better way you can do it. But I'm curious to know what you
And
think.
look up how many um, the estimated number of undocumented immigrants in Minnesota versus Texas and Florida.
Right? You got a good point.
Is this really about immigration? I
Well,
mean, it's like 1.3 million estimated undocumented immigrants in Texas
well,
versus a few 100,000.
I would agree that it seems like after that young man did a news report about the Somali money laundering stuff, it seemed like very quickly there was a surge there. Now, I will also say too, I have to be fair, and I'll play devil's advocate against myself, because currently we know Obama has deported more people than Trump has, and I know there's some skewed facts because we know about 1.7 million people self-deported when he was taking office. But we do know that currently, as a lot of people on the right are saying, Obama's the deporter in chief. But with that being said, I don't believe that we saw these types of street sweep tactics either. So I think both can be true. I think we can agree that
Sure.
Obama um, did do a lot more, had more deportations. Now, this administration's still early in, right? He still has a couple years. But also, I think the tactics were different. Again, I feel very confident, and I'm just looking at this, not again, take the emotion out of it, just logically. If you got a guy like me, for example, I teach the Oklahoma Advanced Criminal Investigation course. So you take a guy like me, and you're like, okay, I want you to investigate this, and I want you to go about this systematically. I want you basically the first time you have an error, you're done, right? I think I can do a very good job utilizing the systems that are in place and find people that are eligible for deportation and do it without unnecessarily detaining a U.S. citizen, right? And doing it in a way that's not just a random targeted effort. I think that's very possible. Now, I get that some people are still like, well, they're here, they shouldn't be here. That's a different conversation. But just looking at it from a constitutionally permissible standpoint and how they're doing it, you're right. I think they're causing more issues for themselves than they realize. That's my professional and personal opinion. And I do think it's interesting, and I don't know. I never saw this. I my interpretation was that Trump was going to go based upon the MAGA crowd. My I always thought they were going to go after everybody. But a lot of people that I'm talking to that are more left of center have said that they were under the assumption that they were only going to go after the worst. We know that mom and kids are, we know that's happening, right? My assumption was they were always going to go after everybody personally. What was your thoughts? I mean, did you think that they were going to go after just the worst of the worst, or did we kind
That's
of
how they sold it,
is it? Because
right?
I don't remember
Yeah,
I don't remember seeing it, but I just assumed that they were going to go after
that's
everybody.
that's what I was waiting for them to start going into ganglands, right? They want to get all the hardened criminals, all the that I mean, they're all here committing crimes. So, but they're not. They're going to the people in Home Depot, the people who are actually picking our fruits and working our farms, and it doesn't make sense to me.
From a number standpoint, I know they're
They
getting
haven't
bad
gotten in a
people, but
shootout,
they're getting everybody, right?
right?
It's like you take a net and you catch 100 fish, you're gonna have some really big ones and some really small ones, right? Like that's just a numbers game. Um, if you is there anything that
They're not having,
go ahead.
they're not having shootouts with MS-13,
Uh,
right?
I
I mean,
haven't.
come on,
It seems, and my understanding was, and maybe it's just because I don't watch enough news. I figured they would be going after everybody. I figured everybody would be fair game, in my opinion. I don't want to get. I honestly, I don't watch. I do watch news, but the news I watch, man, like I tell people all the time, I suck at golf. I've never played golf, to be honest with you, so I know I suck at it. But
same.
I watched dispositions. I love watching. I just the use of force stuff, man. Like I'll sit and watch a 2 hour disposition on why an officer used bad force. Like that's what I do, and I enjoy it. But when I look at this again, I just assumed they were going to do it. But um, I guess if you're telling me that, then yeah, I guess they sold it to the American people that we're here to do it to protect you, and it just seems like again people are concerned with the fact that hey, like there's so many videos of them stopping random women. Like I did a video on it not too long ago where this Hispanic woman is walking up into a Target and she gets surrounded by 3 or 4 ICE agents and they're asking, hey, where are you from? This that. It just seems like, in my opinion, and let me ask you as a cop. I have never once went into a place where I had a body warrant and I had to sit there and talk to them. Either you're going with me or you're not, right? Never once have I had
Right,
a warrant on a business. I served a warrant, on a business not too long ago. Pretty, it made no local news. But when I walked in there with a warrant, there was no talking. Like if you got in my way, you were obstructing. But I did the legwork.
sure.
We had undercover operations done. Like we did everything we needed and we owned the scene, right? So that's why I think this is dangerous because I feel like is it fair to say they're shooting from the hip and that's what it looks like, right? And
Sure.
I just googled ICE ERO. Their academy's been shortened to 47 days. Did you know that?
Oh my gosh. No, I didn't. But look, they remember crime is off the charts in Minnesota. They're trying to help. They're trying to get all the criminal element out of Minnesota, right? That's another way this has been portrayed. Now let's keep in mind, we're almost through the entire month of January. There have been 3 murders, if you will, in Minnesota. 2 of them were committed by ICE agents.
That's crazy.
Where's the other crime? Where are all the other murders that were happening in Minnesota? It all just abruptly stopped. So I don't know.
So I'm curious because again I've done a video on this. It's up, so nothing. My opinion's already out there. Let's talk about Renee Good just for a moment.
Yeah.
What's your thinking
Well,
about
let
that?
me.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I'm not disputing that there's a need for ICE and Border Patrol.
Right.
That's not what I'm saying at all. And for sure, if people are here, they shouldn't be. But listen, they the process for becoming a naturalized citizen in this country is insanely long and expensive. So, but again, we
Would you be
allow
okay?
certain.
Would you be okay? Sorry to cut you off. I talked about this on a
Sorry.
video that I did. Would you be okay with giving? Because there's a we know that there's for armed forces for somebody like your son who's serving their country. We know that we have an INA policy that states that if they served one day in hostility, it's called during a hostility doctrine, they are allowed to apply for naturalized citizenship because they served in a time of war. Is are would you be? Because I can tell you already, I am. But again, I don't. This is how I feel. If the undocumented, because we have a lot of undocumented people actively in combat zones serving this country,
Yeah.
would you be okay with an initiative where it's like, hey, if you do 6 years of an enlistment, or you serve your country for 6 years, you are granted 100%. You are automatically granted a citizen if you're honored with an honorable discharge or honorable service of 6 years. Would that be something that you'd be just, hey, you get it just because you did it?
1,000%.
I agree.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't we? I mean, they put themselves in harm's way for this country. Why wouldn't that earn them citizenship?
Do you think that's controversial at all? I don't.
I I don't think it is. Do I think there are people who would consider it controversial? Yes, but should it be? No, absolutely not.
And then for viewers,
We've
it's
deported people who served.
right. So
I
for
mean,
viewers, it's called the INA Section 329, if you want to look it up. But it said designated periods of hostility, September 11th, 2001 to present, and then there's other ones, historically. But I personally think and I think that even conservatives will agree, and I know Trump talked about it, that the process should be more neat, more concise, more applicable, because I believe, and again, I come from a family of immigrants myself. I believe that there is a lot that we can gain with having good people here. And I think that should it just be given? No, I'm not. I'm not going to say that. But I think that something like military service, right? If you served your country, even if an average enlistment can be 4 years, but if you say, hey, I'm coming in, I would even go as far as like right now they're given like bonuses and stuff. If you're an undocumented person and you go through the right paperwork and they're like, "Hey, I want to serve my country." Okay, cool. You can join the military, you can join the Navy, Army, Marine Corps, whatever. You do 6 years and you forego any bonus, but at the end of 6 years of honorable service, you get handed your green card as a citizen. I'm 100% for that.
so, and I don't think that people understand all the ins and outs of immigration. I have a friend who came here on a student visa, graduated from a 5A school, valedictorian. His student visa expired. He's still here, right? So he's at risk of being deported, but he's 26 now and still trying to get through this process of citizenship. It's difficult.
I
And
agree.
he didn't come in illegally, right? He came here legally. It's just that his visa is now expired, which, he's about to have a green card. So, um, but it's taken this long. I mean, he went through high school, and like I said, now he's 26. So it's taken, I don't know, how long is that? 10 years or so. And he's still unable to get it done.
Well, I
So
just
there are
think
people.
I think even from just a efficiency standpoint, like wouldn't we want the process as Americans? Wouldn't we want the process to be like a quicker yes or no? Wouldn't that be beneficial just from that standpoint? I mean, I think that you're talking, I mean, 10 years, that's a long time. That's two different presidencies.
Yeah. I agree there should be some time spent for them to learn our Constitution, learn our way of life, to learn, about how our government functions, to learn our language, right, while they're here, going through this process. I don't know how quick it needs to be, but it certainly needs to be more efficient than it currently is. And the money
So,
that we're wasting
yeah.
on what's happening now could be spent to hire more judges and unclog the system. It's clogged up.
So I want to correct the record. Uh, I need to apologize. So I'm here on the FLETC DHS website. This was released January 22nd, 2026. In addition, Homeland Security investigations, HSI candidates received more than 100 days of specialized training. Standard training for enforcement removal operations, ERO candidates, is 42 days.
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm a big advocate of training. I think there's a lot of cops on the street now that aren't where they need to be. I have my own prerequisites for what I think, but um, anyway, I just wanted to. I think I said 47. I just wanted to correct the record for ERO. This was put out January 22nd. You read it. I'll link it in this. I'm copying it right now to link it in the to link it again. So I apologize. I said 47. I should have said 42. So forgive me for.
Oh, mate. So let's move on to Renee Good.
Yeah, go ahead. What are your? I know you did a video on it, so go ahead and just give it to us straight.
Mm, I was pretty pissed off when I did that video. I so again, I wasn't on the ground, but I have been on the ground in similar situations. I've watched the video, everything that I can find. I've watched that officer's feet and the trajectory of this vehicle as she backed up and turned her wheels away from him to escape, right? And people don't realize that in a pursuit, law enforcement doesn't block the road. I bet you know why, don't you?
Well, because we have case
Because
law
we
on
want to
that.
give them,
We have
we want
case
to
law on
give
that.
them,
Well,
sure,
yeah, because I mean, we know that based upon case law, because the case law you're talking about, they blocked it with a truck. Um, because you're causing lethal. I mean, that automatically makes it a lethal use of force situation. And then also we know because Oklahoma
sure,
Highway Patrol does it, a TVI is not considered to be deadly force. So even a TVI is not deadly force. So that's a point that I brought up in my video when I talked about it. Um, so a tactical vehicle interception, even at speed, is not considered to be lethal force. So this guy, again, put himself in a position of, and I think everybody would agree, this was a position of officer-induced exigency, and this is why I say it. And I would love to do a
correct.
scenario if you're willing. I'd love to do a quick scenario, just play devil's advocate. But my first question is, and let me ask you, sir, and I believe you probably have more training experience than this ICE agent. Is it possible? Is it humanly possible for you to stop a vehicle in motion without killing the driver?
No,
Honest question.
I mean,
So
as a,
let me ask you another question. Is it possible if the driver was a robot and automated, is it possible to stop that vehicle with you standing in front of it? Can you physically stop a moving vehicle?
it's no,
Right, and,
it's
and, and,
no.
and that's true. So again, from a Connor v. Graham states that an officer has to act reasonably, right? And somebody that teaches tactics, and I'm unapologetic. Let me just tell you, I'm unapologetic about officer safety, and I'm unapologetic about good tactics. Somebody that was using officer safety and good tactics would not stand in front of a vehicle that could be moved. Um,
Correct.
because the question is, right, and this is kind of, let me just, if you don't mind, just like do a quick deposition, right? Because this is all I do. This is not all I do, but this is what I enjoy doing. So if you're getting deposed on the stand, I would say a good officer involved shooting. There's no good shootings, but a good shoot in regards to what an officer should do. You should be able to take that shooting and be like, hey, if this happens to you, this is a permissible, lawful way to do it. Like that should be something that you would willing to showcase, right? And there's many shootings out there where the officer had no choice and he was defending himself and others. That's part of the job. But the question is, right, and this is what it's going to be. Let me ask you, do you believe a vehicle can be used as a deadly weapon?
Absolutely.
I agree. So a vehicle can be used as a deadly weapon. Do you believe in officer safety?
Absolutely.
I absolutely agree with you. I believe in officer safety as well. Do you believe that, do you agree that there's Supreme Court case precedents, Terry v. Ohio, that states that you are allowed to frisk a person if you believe that they are armed and dangerous?
Yes.
right? As a police officer, have you
Mhm.
ever conducted a legal pat down on somebody,
Many, many, many times.
right? And you do that because they might have what?
A weapon that
A
could hurt me.
weapon. And that's
Sure.
permissible. So you are saying that you use your officer safety to ensure that you're not placing yourself in undue risk, correct? That's the point of
Correct.
a pat down. And I would agree with you. And you believe that a vehicle is a deadly weapon, correct?
Correct.
So why the heck would you stand in front of a deadly weapon?
Right. Right.
And that's
Right.
unfortunately that's the
That's
line of
like
questioning
stepping
that
in front of a gun.
yeah, the same thing. So if
Mhm.
you know a
Right.
gun is dangerous, why are you putting yourself in front of it? If you know a knife is dangerous, why are you putting yourself in front of it? Removing her from the vehicle, cool. Pennsylvania v. Mims, you can do it all day. But you can't physically stop a vehicle. So why are you standing in front of an object you know you can't physically stop when you
Yeah.
know it's a
Which,
dangerous
by the way,
weapon? And he was dragged. He was dragged. I guess 6 months. 6 months earlier, he was dragged by a vehicle. Guess what? That immigrant, that or undocumented person, whoever, you know what he wasn't charged with? Attempted manslaughter. So that guy drug him. He apparently got 30 plus stitches, but that guy wasn't able to be even charged with it. So the next question is, if the same situation occurred, he didn't pull his gun, he got tapped or hit or whatever like he did, and she immediately pulled over, would there be enough evidence to charge her with vehicular manslaughter? I just don't think so.
I don't think
So
so.
think about it. Had he not, my only question to the audience, had he not fired and he got hit and the same thing happened except for no gunplay and she immediately pulled over, could you charge her with a crime? Absolutely. Could you charge her with attempted homicide or attempted manslaughter? Because that's what they're saying, right? That's how they're justifying the shooting that she intended to run him over.
Right.
That's an honest question. And again, I just, another one, case law from last year, Barnes versus Felix. I'm sure you're familiar with that one. Supreme Court said that the moment of threat is no longer a doctrine that is used by other. It's always been totality of circumstances. Illinois v. Gates, always been totality of circumstances. So I just think that if it was me, I don't want to be that officer. And if I'm
Right.
training you, I don't want you to be that officer either. Now, we'll see what happens with qualified immunity. I'm sure you have your own opinions on that. We'll see what happens with all that stuff. Um, I don't like it. I, I'm not. I can very easily depose that on the stand and make you look bad. Is not a position I'd want to put myself in. And I think that again, training, right? We need to train officers. I do. I want you to be safe. I want you to go home at night. And how you do it is by using good tactics. You don't put yourself in situations where you have to, right? In aviation, when I was in the military, right? Something that pilots and aviators say is we use our absolute discretion, so we don't have to use our incredible flying skills, right? So you use it's same thing in a gunfight, right? You use your discretion, so you don't have to use you don't have to
Look,
use your proficiency.
I've worked in a lot of different industries, from law enforcement into private security. I was a cooler for a long time. A lot of people probably don't know what a cooler is, but I was head of security over bars, over nightclubs.
We've all seen Roadhouse, sir.
So, okay, well, uh, every year when we would uh, you know, do our training and start bringing in new help and everything, uh, our job fair, I guess, if you will. And I would always explain to the people who are applying for security that if you want to find a fight, it's pretty easy to do,
100%.
right? It doesn't matter if you work in security or law enforcement, none of that matters. If you're looking for a tussle, you can take any situation and gear it that direction. But you can also go the other way. Instead of looking for reasons, and this is what I used to tell them, and you can fit it into this scenario. Instead of looking for reasons to throw people out, look for a reason to let them stay. And I'm not talking about immigration. I'm talking about how you do your job when you're in contact with civilians. And it's the same for me when I was in law enforcement. Sure, could I find a reason to arrest someone, write them a ticket, or even draw my weapon? Sure, every time. But think about if all of our law enforcement thought that way, instead of thinking do no harm, what kind of society would we be living in?
Yeah, I think a lot of it
For crying
too.
out loud.
Yeah,
I
I think
mean,
I'm very critical of, I from a training standpoint, I kind of have to be. Um, I feel like there's a lot of bad training scars out there for law enforcement. I do. I'll openly admit that. Um, I grew up with a different idea of law enforcement, and again, I've had the benefit of knowing some, more old school law enforcement, your era, past your era, right? Older than you. And I was always taught you don't threaten something that you're not willing to do. If you're not willing to go forward with it, don't even bring it up. It's not even
correct,
on the table, right? It's not even on the table.
correct.
Because you don't threaten people. I was always taught citations and enforcement is not punishment. It's not your job to punish people. It's your job to
Right,
gain voluntary compliance, and it's your job to try to fix behaviors, try to change behaviors. So
correct.
I'm a big firm believer in this. If I do a traffic stop and I've gotten onto at previous agencies because hey, what about your stats? Like, why don't you have as many citations? It's like, well, ask me how many warrant affidavits I've done. Ask me how many search warrants I've done. Ask me how many child molesters I've put away. Okay, cool. You can shut your mouth now, right? Ask me how much training that I've completed.
Right,
Ask me. So when I look at citations, for example, if I can gain voluntary compliance, that's all I want. Congratulations, go about your day, right? Especially in a small rural Oklahoma, I'm going to see you again. So if I've
yeah,
stopped you for speeding and then I come back and a week later you're still going 15, 17 over and I decide to stop you for that, like I'm going to see you again. But they're not supposed to be ego driven. They're not supposed to be because I'm trying to, number one, generate revenue for a city. They're definitely not supposed to be because I'm trying to punish you. That's not my job. I'm not your parent. My job is not to punish you. What I'm trying to do is create the roads to be safer. So if I can get that through voluntary compliance, great. But if I show up and I just can't have a conversation with you because you're, F the police, this, that, well, maybe a citation's the only way that, if nothing else, you're like, at least at this intersection, I know I have to drive better because there might be a cop. Cool. I don't like that. I don't
right,
enjoy that. But they're never, that's how it was, that's how I grew up. It was never about your job is not to put, these, there's no difference between you and them. Another thing I tell people all the time, concealed carry permit holders, what situation are you going to run into? What situation is law enforcement going to run into that you're not? And I tell that to cops too. Everything we respond to is to our own citizens, right? We may see more of something, right? I will see more trauma than they do, but somebody would try to ambush me just like criminals ambush people all the time, right? So we have to understand that we are there, but this idea that you know, um, that we don't have any kind of oversight or that our job is to punish and be people's adult parents, I think that's a very bad mentality to have, and unfortunately, that's kind of the mentality I'm seeing more and more. You know, I know better for you than you know for yourself, and it's like
right.
if you have that mentality, I think that's the wrong mentality. My job, a patrol officer, their bread and butter should be, do I have reasonable articulable suspicion? Do I have probable cause? But I guarantee you, and I encourage your audience, go up to a cop, ask them to explain what reasonable suspicion is. Ask them to explain what probable cause is. You know how many cops don't know what it is? And it's like, so you're out there
Right.
enforcing law, but you can't even tell me what probable cause is. You can't give me one case law for probable cause. You know how scary that is for me? Because guess what, man? Like, I'm a citizen too. Like I walk around too, and I'm just waiting for honestly, at this point, sometimes I kind of wonder what happens if a cop stops me because, you know, I'm a big brown guy with a beard, and they're like, oh, I joke and kid, but with this new ICE thing, like, we're already seeing that there are reports that off-duty cops are being stopped. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. I do believe, right, that law enforcement by and large, it's a real tough job. I don't care what anyone says. It's a tough job. I just think that the culture is going in a place that I'm not fond of. The standards are being laxed. I'm not fond of that. I think training should be better, but I also will say this, and I've been public about this too. I get it. There's cops out here, in McIntosh County, for example, that are making, 17.50 an hour. That's rough. That's hard. You know, there are cops in other places in this area that are making even less. I mean, the sheriff's office I think is about that, but you have cops that are making 12.50, 13, $14 an hour. That's just
Yeah.
it's not livable. You know, I know most cops that I know require a second job with their wife working,
Yeah.
right? There were yeah, you have a
Yeah.
family working three different jobs to make ends meet. That's rough. So you can't expect these people to study in their spare time when you have, you know, I know a sergeant for a police department that is a sergeant and then he cuts grass when he gets off work or he takes days off to cut grass. Like literally he has to take vacation to cut grass because he makes more money the 3 or 4 days he takes vacation to cut grass than he will an entire
Yeah.
month of working.
Yeah. I've always worked multiple jobs too. Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, well, you can't expect to get the quality of policing that you get when that's what it is. And it's funny because you look at where cops are paid the most and where education and standards are highest. I hate to say this, but they're in the, I mean, I don't hate to say this, it's the truth. Your blue states pay the officers better. The training is better. Now, the experience, I'm not saying their lived experience is better. Don't get me wrong. I don't think you're going to find a single Portland Police Bureau cop that's going to say that their experience is better than it would be in the South, but they're also not leaving because that paycheck's really nice, right? So
Yeah.
you call it what it is.
Right.
I think both can be true, but yeah, I think there needs to be a little more, and I think the culture needs to change, and I think that's what a lot of it is. So, in your thought process, where things are going, where do you see the culture in the current trajectory, where it's currently at? Where do you see us at the end of Trump's administration? Like in 3 years, where do you see us as a culture?
I wish I had an eight ball to, the magic eight ball you shake and
Hmm.
tells you the future. I don't, because I just don't know.
Are you scared?
You talking about long? Oh yeah. Oh, are you kidding? Listen, I have a history degree. I've been screaming. I've been screaming for 10 years about where things are going, and everything that I have talked about before it was cool to say has come true.
What are some of the things
So
that have come
yeah,
true?
hmm.
What are some of the things that have come true that you're because I can see visibly I can see that this is weighing on your mind. You know, I can see it. What do you
Well, listen, I, let's just say I'm not surprised with where we are. I'm
okay?
definitely not surprised that we are dealing with ICE and federal agents the way that we are. The contrast between this and some other events in history are spot on. It's like a replay. And again, I started bringing these things up before they happened and said, hey, this is where we're heading. This is the next stage. Um, and then that would happen. So
You know what I'm afraid of?
um,
So
sad reality is,
I was talking to I was talking to somebody that is in law enforcement at a not state, local, or county level. um, and this is unfortunately this is what I'm worried about because I see this being this is what I'm afraid of, right? We know the powder keg is there. What I'm afraid of is that there is some kind of kinetic incident that happens, right? So hypothetically, is it crazy to think that a law enforcement agency doing immigration customs job stops a vehicle and there is a mother and son born here, son is a US citizen, mom is not, right or wrong, an incident happens where somebody starts grabbing on somebody, they start grabbing him, a weapon is introduced, a weapon is used, horrific incident, loss of life on both sides, and then what's going to be the immediate action? Is the Insurrection Act going to be implemented? Are we going to send military? Are we going to surge? And then so the question is, take that incident out of it. Let's just say, for all intents and purposes, let's say the people that did not immediately submit to ICE, let's say they were wrong, just as a hypothetical. What's going to happen to all the people that are now believe they are subject to some kind of unlawful, unlawful incident. For example, because if you surge military and National Guard to, you know, rural Oklahoma or rural anywhere, and they're like, "Hey, I wasn't on that traffic stop. I did nothing wrong, but now you're having all these troops here, and you guys are setting up blockades." Like that could be a very real thing, right? Because if law enforcement gets attacked, I expect there to be some kind of kinetic response. And so when that kinetic response happens, what are everyday people that weren't a part of that incident going to do? And that's what I'm worried about.
So think of this as a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So think about, I don't know how far apart you and I are in age, but I know back in my day, I hit the street in the early 90s, 91, and we were still trying to build our bridge between law enforcement and the community,
Sure.
right? That bridge is burned. It's over. So what's happening today on the federal side is eroding the trust between law enforcement and and communities as a whole. So I don't know how that's ever going to be repaired. And these officers, my son, the one on that picture, is planning to be a federal officer. He wants to be a U.S. Marshal. It's what he's always wanted to do. He wants
And that
to.
shows just for the audience watching, like that shows a lot because you raised him. Obviously, he has probably similar values to you, and he's not. And nobody hears anti-government. Nobody hears anti-service. I just think that's important to kind of know
No, and
because
he's a diehard Democrat.
right. And I know a lot of people think that, well, how could a Democrat want to serve their country or how could they want to be, and I just want to kind of point that out. Like, don't, the news media may say one thing, but there are people on both sides of the aisle. And then there's people like me who really don't fall into either category. And we all have a desire to serve and we want to make things better. It's just I think where we disagree is how we make things better. But I just want to set that point across because I don't want that to get lost in
Yeah.
translation. Like you're not anti-government, you are not anti-service, right? You're not even anti-law enforcement. I think we all just want things to be better. But go
Yep.
ahead. I just wanted to make sure I hit that point
No,
because I don't want people to.
sure. No, our family's all about service. That's what it's about. It's not, it's about service to the people. He wants to help people. He wants to, because of my story, he wants to be involved. He wants to help rescue trafficked people and serve warrants and hunt down bad guys. And that's just what we do. It's not partisan.
I agree. No,
So my
it
wife's a
shouldn't
nurse,
be.
for crying out loud.
It shouldn't be
No, my
partisan.
wife's been a nurse for 20 years. I mean, we're just about service to other people. So, but anyway, as like I was saying, that bridge between law enforcement and the rest of us is gone forever. You want to know what I think it's going to look like at the end of this term?
Tell
That's
me.
where we're at, and I don't know how that bridge is ever going to be built. How trust in this country between the people and the people who are meant to serve will ever be the same after this. I just don't know. It's scary. It's scary and heartbreaking.
Yeah, and that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about just because it seems, and I don't know how. I mean, people I talk to, and I think I have a good mix of people that I talk to. Um, I just feel like people are heightened. Everybody's heightened. I feel like law enforcement is heightened. I feel like citizens are heightened. I feel like, and I don't even, again, I don't watch the news a whole lot just because it's wild. I mean, the news I watch is just through. I'm intentionally looking for, for things. But I
But
just feel like no matter how you look at it, it just feels like everybody's very heightened, and I don't know. It's scary because
who do we go for? Who do we go to for help now? I mean, and that's what I'm saying. People just when trust is gone, when a society is no longer just, and you don't have recourse or people that you can reach out to for assistance, for help, and you feel that your safety as a whole is being threatened, that's your powder keg.
Yeah, I feel like things become more tribal. Would you agree? Like, if we don't have trust in our
Correct.
infrastructure, right? What do I do? Well, I'm going to trust people that have my like-minded mentality, and that like-minded mentality causes what? Us to be paranoid of everybody else, and then there's infighting,
Sure.
right? And I think that's where a lot of it
Correct.
is. Like, for example, I have a lot of friends that are conservative. I have a lot of friends that are Democrats. Um, but there isn't infighting because if I say something that my Democrat friends don't like we can talk about the fact that I believe in AR-15s and I think we should have them. You may be like, hey, I'm okay with giving them up, but we're both open minded enough to know that I'm not gonna hate you for that, and I don't think you would hate me for that.
Right.
Is that fair? Like, there's no way me and you. I
Sure.
mean, our stories are very similar. Even what we do is very similar, and there's no way we're gonna be in alignment completely. But the fact that I can tell you, hey, I think the AR-15 thing is too far. I agree, training needs to be better, and I agree there are people that have guns that I don't want to be next to.
Right.
All of it can be true, but some people, some Democrats would be like, well, guess what, Mike? We're too far apart. And then for conservatives, I can say, hey, ICE has every reason, they have every right to do immigration enforcement, but let's not lie about it. They're going to be deporting everybody that they can, seemingly, and their tactics and the way they go about enforcement, I think could be way better. I would change it immediately. I think both can be true, but then my conservative friends are like, well, then you're anti-ICE, you're anti-law enforcement. It's like, how come I be anti-law enforcement when I am law enforcement? Just like some people on the left are
Right.
like, well, if you're not, because I'm Hispanic, well, you have to vote this way or that way, or else you're going against your own kind. How can I go against my own kind when I am my own kind? And I think that's what you're talking about. When you don't feel like we can communicate, you go into your own, you go into your own echo chambers, and then you start becoming angry with everybody. And
Mhm.
I think that's very, you're right. I think it's a very dangerous place. And I know you've been thinking about it. And I've been looking at all your stuff, and again, seemingly you seem like you're worried about that just as well as a lot of other people. So I just wanted to know
I'm,
what you think is going to happen.
man, I'm just trying to reach people where they are, right? I mean, can we not just have conversations without it being about politics? I
Sure.
mean, I think that the things that go on, for the most part, affect most of us equally, right? So, and again, I hold currently 4 cleat licenses,
Yeah.
4. So I'm not anti-law enforcement at
I
all.
know, and I
But
never, yeah,
again,
and I think that just
just
looking at your resume, like again, I think that a lot of people, let's be honest, I think a lot of conservatives will look at you and they don't know what to do with you. Is that
you're
fair?
right. You're right.
I'm
Listen,
just
but I've
calling it
been
what it is. And again, I'm a registered libertarian. I just feel like a lot of and then people give me because libertarians, right? A lot. I get it. You just need to pick a side and stick to it. And it's like I don't want to, right? Like you're just it is what it is. But I feel like a lot of conservatives look at you and they don't know what do we do with this guy, right? Your wife's a nurse,
and
your
I
son
don't.
your son's a Marine serving his country. You serve your community. You do, you're law enforcement. You teach. You're a trafficking survivor. Like all the things that they say they care about, you're in that space, right? But you
Sure.
have a D in front of your name. And then even when we were talking before the thing, like you're different than what a Portland Democrat would be. Like I used to work under Ted Wheeler, right? You're not a Ted Wheeler either, right? You've said
Yeah.
things that there's no way Ted Wheeler would be able to come out and say, but you've said them. And I don't think they're
Yeah.
controversial, right? And so maybe even people on the
But
left look at you and be like, you can't say that, but you're your own person.
exactly. That's just it. And I don't. Even from when I was a kid, I hate labels and I don't like boxes. So don't try to put me in any category. I hate being categorized. I'm just me. I mean, this is just how I feel. And again, I still think that if we all set politics aside, we can all sit at a table and have a conversation. And
Right.
we're not all going to agree on everything for sure. But I think that we can all agree that we're all human. We all bleed the same. We all want the same things out of life. And that's really what we've got to get back to. That's how
Right.
I campaign. If you've watched my stuff, you see that I don't bash on people. I don't even bash on the right. I'm not, calling things out all the time. I'm just trying to reach the people and get us back to
Well,
having real adult conversations.
what I appreciate about you, and after I saw your post on homelessness, right? Um,
Mhm.
Coming from Oregon, having worked in Portland, like we have, I mean, the news doesn't do it justice. I'll be like, it's worse than what the news even puts out. Homelessness is real. It affects veterans specifically, very, very hard. It's something that is super important. And homelessness affects old people. It affects young people, people that have mental health issues, people that don't, right? Like literally homelessness
Yeah.
is one of those. Homelessness is like abuse. Everybody can experience it, and it affects people of all different types. And yes, is there some that is, personal choice related? Yes. There are also some where choices, whether you can call them good or bad, they would not be homeless based upon just choices alone, right? There are other factors that occur, and I'm not saying that it's not all of it. And again, I can say both are true, right? I have no problem saying that. I know people that have been homeless that weren't addicted to drugs or any of that, but their life
Mhm.
circumstances. Again, when you're making $15 an hour and you're working your tail off and then you get sick or there's an injury or something happens, you're going to be living out of your car. It is what it
Yeah.
is, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna call the kettle black. And I can also say that homelessness does affect people that decide that they're going to, you know, drugs and other things do are a factor. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's not, but just the fact that you were willing to talk about it and you're willing to kind of talk about this stuff head on. Um, Again, I don't see, and you're not toting a party line. That's why I knew I needed to reach out and talk to you because what you're saying is I'm not hearing party line propaganda from you. I'm hearing your honest feelings, and they may be associated with a party, but I haven't heard the only talking point that I heard that I'd be honest with you. It's not even criticism, but just common sense, right? We've all heard the common sense gun stuff. That's the only thing I heard that was even remotely close. But you articulated yourself. But I just don't feel like you are a if I'm being honest, and again, I don't mean this disrespectfully, but you seem genuine, and you don't seem like the kind of person that's on the take. Like you're not spewing something just because somebody told you this is what you need to believe. You're somebody that believes something based upon your own lived experience, and you know, I don't feel like I'm talking to a paid actor when I talk to you. I can disagree, but I can say you're not a paid actor if that's fair.
I haven't stopped one time to consider um, political party lines before I've answered a question today.
Right.
I,
And I
I
don't
mean,
feel
I'm
that
just
way.
going to say what I feel, and if people want to disagree with me, then that's their prerogative. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm just me. I'm just running to be me, to be as authentically me as I can, and I'm not going to sit up here, on this and just talk political bullet points. It's just not what I'm about at
No, and
all.
I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way
Mhm.
at all, and that's why I think, for Oklahoma specifically, I think that Oklahomans, by and large, education is huge. Children are huge. I mean, I think you've seen the news outlets, the amount of predators that are being arrested right now in Oklahoma alone. I mean, it is just
Yeah.
it is wild. Children, Oklahomans care about their children, they care about their education, and they want to feel like they're heard and protected. That's really what it is. And again, I think that because I've seen your criticisms, it's not hard to find people that criticize you online, as I'm sure you
Right.
could, as I'm sure that you could, as I'm sure that you've realized already.
Yeah.
But those taking those criticisms into account and talking to you, that's what I honestly feel like. I feel like people don't know what to do with you because you're kind of yeah, that's what I'm gathering. Because again, I read all that stuff before I talked to you, and
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it. Again, I don't see how. Again, you sense this. You've again, and I've whenever you've said something that shocked me, I've told you like wasn't expecting that. Um, so yeah, no, I think that's great.
Well,
Go ahead.
most of the people criticizing me haven't taken the time,
No,
and that's
I
just it.
I
And,
agree.
and, and I've dealt with this my entire life. People who take the time to find out about me, get to know me, listen to me speak, or whatever, they usually change pretty quick. And if they don't, then they weren't planning to anyway, you know. But
Yeah. I,
again, my entire life has been spent really just on two things: just being authentic, keeping my word to people, and just working my ass off,
right.
and just being good to people.
Right. And I know that I know you have other things going on. I just want to, if I can ask a couple more questions,
Sure.
what would you say to that young person, that is the new generation that's looking at what's happening right now, right? Because we're January 25th, 2026. They're looking at the world, right? They're looking at their world through their lens. These are post 9/11 children, right? Most of these people way past that, right? Um, what is your message to these young people that are about to be voting age, that are looking at the state of affairs? They're concerned. They don't feel like either party has done them justice. What is your message to them? And again, and I know, and I don't have to say it, but I know you're not going to say it from, like you said, take politics aside. Like, what is Troy Green's message to these youth that are confused?
So I agree that both sides have let them down. I agree that this whole political system is a huge mess. And my appeal to the young people would be to the same thing that I've told my children. I raised all of my children to don't listen to other people. Do your own research, make your own decisions, right? Have your own opinion and your own judgment about things and stick with it. If you believe it wholeheartedly, stick to it, but make sure you have all the facts, right? We don't need someone to tell us what to think or how, we should be viewing something. It's up to us to figure out both sides of this. We need desperately, listen to the young people, it's your future. You need to build it the way you want it to be. Not because I understand that, that I grew up in a different time. But I had a great conversation with a young man. I was speaking in, oh, I want to say Sequoia County, I think it was. And a young man had shown up there. He was 30, I think he's 31 years old, to listen to me speak. And when we called on him, when he raised his hand for questions, we didn't agree on everything. And I thought it was fantastic. But when all this was over and he and I got to visit, face to face, what we realized was that we do agree. We're just looking at it from different perspectives, right?
Oh yeah.
People my age, I'm looking at things that I've already experienced. Okay. And he's looking at things that he's worried about that he has yet to experience and doesn't quite know what he doesn't know yet, if that makes sense.
Man, that's what it is. You don't
So
know what you don't know.
I, that's where we met. I said, I'm just looking at this from the perspective of I know what you're about to go through. So take some of that with a grain of salt, right? That elders actually know something, but elders also need to be willing to have an open mind to a young person's point of view. And I think that's where we fail,
I agree.
right?
I agree.
Every time I go to speak and the room's full of, 60 and 70-year-olds are like, well, how are we going to get young people involved? Well, every time we get a young person in the room and they come up with an idea, an older person goes, oh, that'll never work. And that's what we have to quit doing, right? So young people, I implore you, if you're watching this, please get involved. Please let your voices be heard. It's your world. Build it the way you want it, whether the rest of us agree or not. Period.
I agree. And when I FTO young officers, and when I train, I always tell them, like, if you treat me with respect, I'll treat you with respect, with interest, right? And
Sure.
I think that's where a lot of it comes down, because they are living in a different world than we did, right? And I say this a
Sure.
lot for the kids aspect. Like, let me just be honest with you. I did not grow up with a cell phone. I don't know a lot of people, because this is what I hate. I hate when people downplay the real life experiences of these young people, right? In our day, if you wanted to talk smack to somebody, you went up to somebody's face and you guys got, you got into it, right?
Right,
But the truth
right.
is, they knew there was consequences, so that didn't happen as much. Like I got into fight, people picked on me growing up, but now with that cell phone, you have thousands of people that can pile on you simultaneously. I
Yeah,
didn't have that growing up. Even as an
yeah,
adult, it's easy because to me, social media is not real because I didn't grow up with it. It's not my world. But for these kids, it is their world because when they're, 4 years old and crying, parents give them an iPad or a phone to play on. We've made
yeah,
this their
yeah,
culture and their world. So who am I to say,
yeah.
well, what you're experiencing isn't real? To them, it absolutely is real, and there's real repercussions. And the downplaying of that is why all
Right.
these predators have been able to come in and do what they do because as older people we refuse to look at technology for what it is, and that's just one aspect that I get fired up upon. But just because there's this historic mentality that every generation previous has had it worse than this, and I think that we just need to look at them where they're at because young people are facing some really hard things right now, that I didn't have to face. Again, I didn't have to worry about if I said something out loud that it was going to follow me for the rest of my life. But one of these little kids
Sure.
posts some locker talk that ruins their life.
Yeah, yeah,
And so
yeah,
it's important to train them up and realize that hey, you're living in a much different time than me, right? I can only imagine some of the locker talk conversations I've had in my life, or even as an adult, that if it was, on a tweet or something that was public you couldn't get rid of, man, I right? Like it's
yeah,
just a
for sure.
different, it's a different world. But I think that's great, and I think that's wonderful, and I appreciate you saying that. Well, this is great. Is there anything else you want to touch him on? Do you want to give any final remarks? I think this is great, Troy. I'd love to do this again if you're free in the future as things go. When does everything start taking off for you as far as campaigning goes? Like what's some big dates for you that you're looking at in the future?
My my calendar's pretty full. It's been full for a long time. I travel about, between 9 and 1,200 miles a week, going to events and speaking engagements. That's just it's going to be the same and even busier, especially as we come into spring. We start getting closer to the primary. But I, I'd be happy to come do. I'd be happy to do this again. Anytime I've got space in the calendar, and
Perfect. And I would love if you'd come out to some of our firearms trainings that I teach. Just
mhm.
it gets you some cleat hours and just so you can see kind
Yeah.
of what people on the front line are seeing, and maybe it'll be good. We can give you some sim rounds and change your mind about AR-15s, but that's just me being hopeful. uh,
Well, I
but
have three of them. I mean, but yeah, I definitely come out and do some shooting for sure.
all
I
right.
just I didn't do I didn't do my recall for 2025 until December 19th. I
Yeah, you got to
waited
get
till the
those.
last
You
minute.
got to get those cleat recall. You got to get those.
Yeah,
You got to get those done. But yeah, no, I
yeah,
appreciate that. Maybe again, that's my. I think we had a great. I think we agree on most things. Maybe we'll get you to change your mind. But no, I'm joking. Maybe I got to say it for as a libertarian. I got to say it because if not, they'll get on to me. But I think it's great, and I think we think a lot alike. And that's one of the big criticisms that people have had of you. And I think you were masterful. I mean, um, I think I agree with you. I think if we're gonna taxes are gonna take out taxes is always one of those things that conservatives are, this, that, and the other. Well, guess what? They're coming out right now. Why don't we make sure
yeah.
that those tax dollars that are coming out are being utilized in the best way possible, right? If they're
Sure.
already being taken out now, let's utilize them the best way possible. Let's realize
And
that
that's
two
what.
things can be true, right? Two things
Yeah,
can be true at the same time. I think that we all agree with it, and with I think that we can all agree that the place of policing now can be much better.
yeah. That's
Oh,
Troy's
look at
tax
that! You
plan.
got one.
That's my tax plan. But listen, like I said the other day, that we don't have money problems. We have priority problems
Yeah.
for real.
No, that's a good
Yeah.
point.
I mean,
That's a good point.
there's money that can be reallocated. Like I said, it's all about prioritizing.
Yeah, prioritizing, and I love the fact that your priorities are not they're not they're not bipart they're not they're for everybody. They're not just based upon your party, right?
I
Like
don't look at
again,
anything on a partisan basis.
right? And I think that's great. And again, like we said about schools, let's teach kids. Like we're taking money out. Let's teach kids about what they need to know, right? Personal agendas aside, all that stuff. And I think that's, you know, I agree with you. I don't see how I don't see how that's controversial to our conservative friends, and even to Democrats. I think that's controversial. I don't see any of the stuff that you're saying as controversial. So, as regards to our kids, so I appreciate that. And what's your just if you can plug just what your is it a nonprofit you have for kids that you were talking about at the very beginning? Safe Haven,
Safehavenok.org.
okay. All right, I'll make
Okay.
sure to put your website on there, troygreen4senate.com. Just and again, I'm not saying go out there and you know, take everything like you said for a grain of salt, but I believe as voters, we have to have the best knowledge. So go look, understand, and what I've always found is when I look at people's viewpoints, I learn more not only about the person, but I learn more about the topic. Because, like you said, there's many ways to look at something. So, if I'm wanting to learn
Sure.
about foreign policy or healthcare, learning your point of view and then learning somebody else's point of view, I learn two different things. I learn more.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
I think
Ask
that's
them
awesome.
why. Why? Ask if somebody's willing to have the conversation. Ask them why they feel that way.
I agree. The why
All right.
matters.
So you and I are sitting here today because you reached out to me in a message.
Right.
I mean, you took the time, and I gave the time, and here we are. And
Absolutely.
we need to do more of that.
I appreciate. Well, Troy, I appreciate you. Again, I'm gonna link your stuff in the description box below. You have anything that you want to end on? I thought it was great and hope to train with you. Um,
Yeah, me too. That'd be great
all
for
right, brother.
sure.
You be
So,
safe.
no, nothing really. Just, hey, man, keep doing what you're doing. Okay. I
You as well.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mhm. Bye bye.